Welcome to part 3 of the 7 foundations of value. Go check out the last 2 episodes of Exits Made Easy if you haven't yet at ecombrokers.co.uk/podcast or ecombrokers.co.uk/YT for YouTube. Today, we're discussing documentation. It can be tempting to avoid proper record keeping and just save stuff anywhere, but don't. It could, in theory, cost you millions when it comes to selling your business. Let me explain. Because this is the series where I give you a tip that you can apply to your e-commerce business to help you sell it for the best possible price, deal structure, and at a time that suits you. I'm Ben Leonard, and I built, scaled, and sold an international 7-figure e-commerce business. Now I help others to do the same with ecombrokers.co.uk, the e-commerce brokerage by e-commerce people for e-commerce people. This is Exits Made Easy, an Ecom Made Easy sister show. So what is documentation, and why does it matter when you are building your business to make it sellable and valuable? Documentation refers to meticulous records of SOPs, finances, accountancy reports, tax filings, IP certifications, any record to do with your business, your product, your supply chain. Is your documentation in good order? If someone asked you for XYZ document from 2 years ago, could you find it? If yes, great. If no, you've got work to do. Every day I have calls with business owners, and on the face of it, many of these businesses are amazing. Great products, beautiful images and videos, superb branding, wonderful use of social media. But when I open the box and look inside, the business is a total mess. The business is run out of random spreadsheets, Google Keep, Evernote, and the owner's own memory. Is that your business? You need to fix that yesterday. You really need to have great records of standard operating procedures, your finances, your accountancy reports, your tax filings, your intellectual property certifications, your supplier audits and certifications, your product safety reports and certifications. If you don't have these, a buyer is not going to be impressed. We need to build out our valuation based on the data and the documentation and the record keeping you have. Buyers need to make their investment decision based on the data and the documentation and the record keeping that you provide. And anyway, you should be running your business based on data in the first place. Here's a few key categories when it comes to documentation: financials, accounting, an operations manual, and your supplier documentation. Let's look first at financials. You must be working with an accountant who specializes in e-commerce. I insist on this. If you're in the UK, I suggest mintaccounting.co.uk. The next best to an accountant is a bookkeeper. An accountant is better in my view. Bookkeepers enter data, and that's about it. Accountants give you advice on the numbers and what it means for your business. For instance, cash flow, prioritizing your market spend, that type of thing. If you're in the US and you want a great bookkeeper, we recommend Ecom Balance. If you go to ecombrokers.co.uk/bookkeeping, you'll get a great deal with them. There's a link in the notes. You really need to be using cloud-based accounting software such as Xero or QuickBooks, and you really need to connect these to Amazon, Shopify, eBay, whatever marketplaces you're using. We recommend Link My Books, and you can get that at ecombrokers.co.uk/linkmybooks. Again, the link is in the notes. When you work with professional e-commerce specialist accountants, 2 things magically happen. 1, you understand your numbers better. You run the business better. It scales up faster. Your top line and bottom line go up. And number 2 is potential buyers treat you with respect. They respect that you're a big boy, grown-up business, and not just a side hustle selling stuff on the internet. Now, closely related to the financials is accounting. And when you follow the advice I just gave you and work with a professional e-commerce specialist accountant, again, I recommend Mint Accounting, then the accounting looks after itself. You don't have to worry about it. You can focus on what you do best. If you do it yourself or work with a traditional accountant who might be perfectly fine at working with bricks and mortar, but they don't understand e-commerce, you're going to run into trouble. And the most obvious problem you might fall into is the use of cash-based accounting. You really need to be using accrual-based accounting. Now, cash-based accounting takes account of costs when they occur. Suppose you spend $100,000 on inventory. That spend in cash-based accounting is immediately recorded as a loss on the loss part of your P&L sheet because you've just spent it. And you can't claw any profit back on the profit side of your P&L sheet until you start selling through the inventory. And that's not a true or a fair picture of the business health. The profit has been depressed, and probably the owner is now depressed too, because we've recorded a loss in the loss side of the sheet. But really that's not fair because you own the inventory. You have it on hand. It should be outside the P&L sheet. Accrual-based accounting takes account of costs when the transactions occur. That is why COGS stands for cost of goods sold. The cost associated with each item of inventory that you have bought is not recorded in your P&L sheet as a loss until you actually sell it. So you record the P and the L at the same time. Suppose you've got cash-based accounting, right? And your P&L is showing $500,000 profit. Well, really, it should say $600,000 considering the $100,000 inventory that you've just spent, that you've got on hand. If you then sold the business at a 4x multiple, the incorrect accounting method has just lost you 4 times that 100,000 difference, which is 400,000. When a buyer pitches you to sell directly to them and you have cash-based accounting and you show them your P&L, they rub their hands with glee because they know what they're about to do and pull the wool over your eyes and you lose your shirt. The next item of documentation I want to talk about is an operations manual. An operations manual is basically a playbook of standard operating procedures. An operations manual is basically a playbook of standard operating procedures. It's a manual you can hand over and say, here you go, this is how you run the business. First, having standard operating procedures makes your life running the business easier. Your team can do a lot of it. And when you're ready to hire new team members, you can quickly hand off tasks to them. But more than that, it makes buyers more confident that they can pick up your brand and drop it into their own existing system. And that means buyers value your business more. Personally, I like to use Google Sheets for SOPs and then use Google Drive to store everything neatly according to category. The last topic I'd like to mention is supplier documentation. You need to have copies of documentation related to your supplier. This includes audit reports such as ISO 9001 and 14001, reports which back up any claims in sustainability or environmental credentials, safety reports related to your products, social responsibility reports related to the supplier. The last thing a buyer wants to do is end up accidentally working with a sweatshop. You're going to need to provide third-party quality inspection reports. A buyer doesn't want to get into bed with a dodgy supplier, and if you can't provide this type of information, a buyer will not proceed with an acquisition. I hope you can see that having great documentation is a requirement. If you don't have the right documentation, we can't build out a valuation. Owners aren't going to buy a business without documentation. They would have nothing tangible that says that what you say is true, and they will check all this during their due diligence. The key, of course, is always work with experts. I hope that was helpful. Please subscribe and you can get more at www.ecombrokers.co.uk, where we plan and execute the best possible exit for your e-commerce business. Cheers.